Okay, hello. Now let's talk about the different perspectives under developmental psychology. The first perspective is behavioral perspective. So imagine it's your birthday and you're finally old enough to buy a lottery ticket. You go to the local convenience store, purchase your first ticket, and scratch it off to see if you won any money. If this happened to you and you won, you would probably be like to buy more lottery tickets in the future because your behavior was rewarded. However, if this happened to you and you lost, you would probably be less likely to buy more lottery tickets in the future because your behavior was punished by losing money. So, how does that behavior works? So, behavioral perspective talks about stimulus response relationship. So, this is the tendency to modify our own behavior due to the consequences of that behavior is the basic foundation of this perspective. So, like our example earlier, so you buy a lottery ticket and then you won, there is a chance that you will buy again a lottery ticket and try again to win or to win the jackpot. And then, if you lost, what will happen? You will not try it again, okay? Or you will have to buy again a ticket and brace yourself for another win or loss situation, okay? So it's like touching a hot pan, right? So the stimulus there is touching, and then your response will be swaying your arm away from the hot pan. So that is your behavior. You are hurt because the pan is hot. Okay. So there are four assumptions about behavioral perspective. The first one is the environment influences behavior, meaning behaviors are a result of our interaction with the environment. Um, for example, you are stuck in the traffic, so that is an environmental influence. Stuck in the traffic. So what will be your behavior then? Are you gonna be patient? Are you gonna get irritated? Are you gonna get mad? Okay, number two, learning is described through stimuli and responses. So observable events rather than events that occur inside a person's head. So like for example, doon is yung hot pan and your hand. Okay, stimuli and responses. Number three, learning must result when stimulus and response occur close together in time. So, the hot pan in your hand, you learn na mainit yung pan. So, hindi mo na ulit gagawin yun kasi nasaktan ka. Number four, animals and humans learn in similar ways. Of course, we are very different in terms of animals because as humans can rationalize, okay, mainit pala tong pan. So, hindi ko na ulit hahawakan. But for animals, tatry at itatry pa rin nilang hawakan until they get the food in the hot pan. Right? So, these are the four assumptions under behavioral perspective. So, how will we apply this one in terms of our development, our changes across the lifespan? So, as we age, as we grow, as we develop, our environmental influences don't develop because it is what it is. Mainit sa labas, okay, mainit hanggang pagtanda natin. Ang nababago lang is our response to the hot environment as we grow older. Okay, nung bata tayo, pawisin tayo, mabaho tayo, kasi yun nga, pawisin. But as we grow older, we respond to the hot environment in terms of, maliligo ko, I will feel na malamig para maramdaman kong malamig even though mainit. Okay? So, nagbabago-bago yung mga response natin in the different situations. Now, let's talk about different theories and researches that corresponds behavioral perspective. Okay, so we have the next, which is operant conditioning by B.F. Skinner. So, many behaviorists din ang gumamit ng experiment na to, which is operant conditioning, katulad ni na Edward Thorndike na nag-introduce ng law of effect by observing the behavior of animal trying to escape the puzzle boxes. And then we have the father of operant conditioning, which is B.F. Skinner, based on Thorndike's law of effect. So his famous experiment is called Skinner's box or conditioning chamber. So through this experiment, Skinner found that consequences for the animal played a large role in their response behavior. So kung sa animal, nagre-respond sila ng behavior depende sa consequences, paano na lang tayong humans, no? So the Skinner box is when a rat pulled a lever, it would receive food. So subsequently, the rat made frequent pulls on the lever. Of course, so ipupull mo yung lever, magkaka-food ka. So ipull mo ng ipull para hindi ka gutumin. So it is a form of learning described by many behaviorists in which a response increases in frequency as a result of its being followed by reinforcement. So as the mouse or as the rat pulls its lever, andun yung reward niya, which is the food. So positive reinforcement. So reinforcers can be positive or negative, and both act to strengthen behaviors and responses. So which is which? If you have given a reward through positive reinforcement, syempre mas strengthen yung behavior yun to do it again. If negative reinforcement naman yung nangyari, syempre, less likely na gagawin mo ulit yun. Di ba? So on the other hand, punishment differs from negative reinforcement because it acts to decrease a response. But remember, use punishment sparingly. So yung punishment is like pinapalo, napapahiya. So mali-less likely na hindi mo na talaga ulit itatry yung behavior na ginagawa mo. Okay, so in summary, operant conditioning deals with reinforcement and the strengthening of behaviors. And also remember, reinforcers can be positive or negative, and both act to strengthen behaviors and responses. And on the other hand, punishment will respond to decreasing or less likely na wala na talaga, right? So psychology says that this type of behavior. So the first one is Thorndike's research. He started due to his interest in intelligence and different types of intelligence. Ito yung mga multiple types of intelligence like visual, kinesthetic, um, and so on and so forth. So, such as we are capable of doing multiple tasks simultaneously. So, do you agree? Multiple tasks like watching movies while eating, reading a book while drinking our coffee, chatting with our friends while listening to music, and so on and so forth. So he started his research with a series of famous experiments, which he used cats in puzzle boxes that could adapt their behavior in order to achieve positive consequences and avoid negative consequences. So, what is this research about cats in puzzle boxes? So, he created puzzle boxes and then he put the cat inside that box. The cat should or would have to figure out a series of behaviors to escape the box. So, kailangan makalabas ng pusa. So, anong gagawin ng pusa? So, enclosed yung box, maliit. So, kailangan niya talagang lumabas. So, trinay niyang push yung lever. kung tataas. Trinay niya ding kagatin or swish like a swing. So from left to right until mag-open yung door. So to simply escaping the box due to these behaviors, the cats were further rewarded with a dish of food. The cats were put inside the same puzzle box several times and each time. And mineasure niya kung gaano kabilis nakalabas na yung pusa. So, in that scenario, nakikita yung intelligence ng cat on how to escape the boxes. And he try to reward the cat if may gagawing paraan yung cat para makalabas sa box. And if wala namang gagawin, hindi niya bibigyan ng reward. So what is this called? Yung giving of reward and not giving of reward in terms of the behavior or in terms of the action of the cat. So Thorndike coined the term law of effect. So number one, if a particular behavior is followed by a desirable consequence or a reward, that behavior is more likely to happen again in the future. So, just like the cat doing in the box, binibigyan niya ako ng pagkain. Try ko nga ulit i-push yung lever. So, there, nagkaroon ulit siya ng food. So, nagka-reward siya. Like, for example, natin kanina yung lottery ticket. If nanalo ka, magkakaroon ka ulit ng desire to buy again a lottery ticket. Kaya sometimes, nagkakaroon tayo ng gambling addiction. Na, ay, nanalo ako, taya nga ulit ako ng ₱5. Ay, nanalo ulit ako, taya ulit ako ng ₱5. So that is the first law of effect. The second one is, an undesirable consequence or punishment, that behavior is less likely to happen again in the future. Like for example, what if yung dun sa experiment ni Thorndike dun sa cat, if the cat don't do a particular action about in the box, na hindi niya ipupush, hindi niya i-sway yung lever, i-electrocute siya. So that is like a punishment. So hindi na ulitin ng cat yun kasi nasaktan siya. For example, again, yung lottery ticket natin, if sunod-sunod na yung losing of money mo at wala ka ng pera, nabaon ka na sa utang dahil kakataya mo ng lot, hindi mo na ulitin yun dahil yung punishment doon is sobrang dami na yung utang mo and then hindi ka na makakain. Okay? So, less likely to happen again. So, like for example, you are late in the class and then na -5 ka. The next class, maaga ka na kasi you don't want to have that minus point again. Okay? So, another situational example is for a child. So, sinabi mo dun sa bata, huwag kang aakyat ng stairs kasi hindi mo pa kaya, mauuntog ka sa ulo. And then suddenly, hindi niya sinunod yung payo mo. Umakyat siya ng stairs. So, nabukulan siya. So, yun yung punishment niya. Afterwards, hindi niya na uulitin. Okay? Like, for example, for toddlers, which is rising na yung rough and play, kapag nasaktan siya dun sa play na yon, like for example, oh, tara, boxing tayo. Iyaya mo mag-boxing yung pamangkin mo. Bigla siyang nasaktan, so iiyak siya. Ayaw niya na ulit makipaglaro sa'yo. So, yun yung law of effect number 2. Example of law of effect number 1 for adults, kapag natapos mo ng maaga yung trabaho mo, less likely matutuwa sa yung boss mo and bibigyan ka niya ng tip. Okay? So, maraming examples of law of effect. No? Like for us, for you students, if you have done your modules before the deadline, law of effect, may reward ka. If hindi mo natapos before the deadline, law of effect, baka may deduction of points. So, in our everyday life, pwedeng i-apply itong law of effect. Sabi nga dun sa picture, what goes around comes around. Okay, next study about behavioral perspective is the most famous Pavlov's dog under classical conditioning. So classical conditioning is defined as a form of learning in which a new involuntary response is acquired as a result of stimuli being presented at the same time. So like for Pavlov's, he used his dog to condition itself in terms of hungriness, di ba? The dogs were conditioned to salivate when food arrived at the sound of the bell. So let's try to see the first picture in the presentation. So the dog salivates when he was presented by a food. Okay? Then the next one, the dog did not salivate at the sound of the bell. Bakit nga ba ako magugutom sa sound ng bell? Okay? Then the third one, he tried to associate the food and the bell. Okay? So nagsalivate yung dog. And then trials and trials of doing the picture number 3 until he associated the sound of the bell into food. Kaya nagsasalivate na siya when hearing the food. So, na-condition na siya in terms of how to eat, di ba? So, patunugin mo yung bell, magugutom siya. Dahil, yun na yung na-associate niya, na-practice na siya, kumbaga. An example of this would be sa atin, no? Kapag nag-ring na yung bell, uwian na, right? So, once na narinig natin yung bell, iniisip natin na, ay uwian na, ay lunch break na, dismissal na. So that is one way of conditioning us kasi nasanay tayo nung elementary, high school, and then ngayon, di ba? Na pag narinig na yung school bell, uwian na. Yung pala, fire drill lang. Okay? Next one is Watson's Little Albert. So in this kind of research or experiment, Watson maintained that emotions may be transferred from an object or an event to another person if the circumstances are right. So this is the famous experiment about little Albert or baby Albert. Okay, so present siya ng white rat, hindi siya natakot. Tapos, natakot siya nung narinig niya yung loud hammer. So, trinayal. White rat and then loud hammer. So, natatakot yung baby. Until na-associate na siya na pag nakita niya yung white rat, nakakarinig siya ng loud hammer. Until na-trauma siya sa white rat. Right? Kasi na-experiment nga siya sa baby. Like for example, for our pamangkin, kapag nakakita na ng hanger, alam na agad nila na papaluin sila sa puwet. So, na-initiate yung fear sa kanila hanggang sa matrauma na sila na kapag may mali silang magagawa, i-present mo lang yung hanger or yung belt at tatakot na sila. And for our last research about behavioral perspective, so we have PREMACK principle. So this was started by David PREMACK, a psychologist in the 1950s and 60s who became interested in studying the internal motivation for particular behaviors because according to psychologists, this type of behavior is done because of intrinsic rewards. So, saan ba nanggagaling yung rewards? Is it from money, food, appreciation from others, and so on and so forth. So for PREMACK principle, intrinsic, which is inside of you, which is your self-acceptance or self-care is the part of your reward. So it argued that when you consider all of the possible behaviors you might do, such as when you are presented with free time, you could rank order your preference for each behavior depending on your personality and needs at the time. Kaya nga sometimes if wala tayong ginagawa, we rank our behaviors na, ito yung mga gusto kong gawin. Gusto ko matulog, gusto ko mag-binge watch ng Korean drama, gusto kong i-satisfy yung appetite ko and so on and so forth. So that is through your intrinsic reinforcement. So how will we inline these different theories or researches to our development? So so according or rather that according or as we grow or as we age, those rewards, those reinforcements are kumukonti ng kumukonti or lumiliit ng lumiliit until we will have this intrinsic reinforcement. Di ba pagtanda natin, sometimes we don't care about the money, we don't care about material things, but we care for what we really want in our life, like peace of mind, self-care, stable mental health, and so on and so forth. So, kapag bata ka, dun ma-associate or ma-condition yung rewards and reinforcements mo. Right? At the middle part of your life, malalaman mo na yung mga needs and wants mo individually, di ba? So, there you go, our behavioral perspective, and stay tuned for our next perspective. Thank you very much.